Hey, scrappy people. Tracy Reed here today, coming at you with a cosmic layout. Literally, I'm using the Cosmic Collection by Kristin at Sweet Shops Designs to make this beautiful layout using, or about, our stargazing in Oahu. One of the beautiful things about staying at Aulani is that you're literally on the beach, and after dark, everyone with their kids goes away and you have the beach all to yourself, and it's still warm because you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on a tropical island. So it was just beautiful, and this collection works really well for these photos, so I thought I would put them together. So I have a paper that I printed, the background paper. I added to it, those white stars and those white blotches are actually some paint and stars from the collection. They aren't actually on the background paper itself, although the rest of the sort of galaxy stuff is. I also added some in real life silver color shine from Heidi Swap just to give it a little bit of reflection and add it in to all of those splotches on the paper. I'm going to use this green paper as a matte for my photos, and then that purple paper I put down. I just felt like I wanted to break up the background paper a little bit and add a little bit more visual interest. So I tore a piece of paper and roughed up the edges, and then I roughed up the edges of the green paper mat as well. So I'm going to stick this frame behind the paper, and I could have done it before I stuck everything down, except I just didn't quite know where I wanted everything to go. And I'm also going to be using it on both the top and the bottom, so I cut in half the second one that's not sticking out on the left hand side, and then I will go ahead and take this purple one and I will do the same thing, except I put it down the wrong way first. I have to turn it so that the scallops are on the sides and not the bottom, and I'll figure that out here just a second. When I'm like, why won't these two go together? Why does it look weird? Because it's sideways. There we go. Okay. So I just kind of have it looking like they're tilting underneath the paper mat, just as an extra layer of decoration and visual interest. Those scallops on that sort of postage stamp frame really looks cool. Of course, my silhouette cut them out completely, so it came apart, but that's okay. I just pieced it back together. And then I actually have 3 photos that I'm using on this page. One is this vertical one my mom actually took of Patrick and I laying on the beach. And then this one I took of the actual cove at Aulani in the dark, so you can see it all lit up. And the beach, the lagoon, I guess, on the left hand side there. And then this one is actually looking back at the resort at night, all lit up as well. So I just had a few of those photos that kind of all went together and told the same story. So I created a sort of a grid layout to tell the story. Of course, everything else is wonky and torn and distressed, and there's going to be lots of layers, but the basic grid here makes it easy to work around. Just using some liquid glue and making sure all of the edges stick down on those frames. And then I have a lot of fun embellishments from the digital kit, including this star wire thing. This is going to go along the bottom edge of my paper, or of my photos, not my paper, which ties them all together as well. The photo mat ties them together well, groups them, but then putting something over the top, especially something that's not in the grid, supposedly, will help tie all of it together visually too. And besides, it's just fun and pretty. Now these are digital fan folds with stars in the middle, and obviously if they were real fan folds, they would have a lot of depth, and that's kind of why I prefer digital fan folds, because you get that cute look without adding like an inch to your layout. Plus, I can cut off the top and bottom pieces that are hanging over the edge, and it won't be a hassle. Okay, so I have these stars that are glittery from the kit, but they weren't glittery enough for me, or at least not real glittery enough for me. So I'm gonna add some holographic glitter embossing powder to them. It doesn't make a huge difference, it is very subtle, but it adds a little bit of glimmer to the stars and makes them a little bit more interesting. So I'm gonna get out my heat tool and let those emboss. It's kind of fun to watch it in fast motion. I'm going to use those at the end of the page though. They're going to be like the last thing I put down, or almost the last thing I put down. So we're just going to let them sit over here and kind of dry. They should be dry, but you know, it never hurts to be a little bit safe when it comes to anything that you're putting on there that could smear. So I made this title from some word art that was in the collection, and of course dumb me didn't make sure that it all printed out as one piece. Some of these letters are separated. If I had just moved down Moonlit a little bit so that it touched the tops of all of the letters of nights, I wouldn't have had this problem, but it's not a big deal. Most of it printed out as one piece. And the reason that I added those white spots to the paper before I printed it was because they were going to go underneath the clouds and give the clouds sort of a cool glow. So I'm making sure that I'm putting them right over where I intended them to go. Then I have to put down the rest of the letters. Nothing really wanted to stick on this page, which was funny. No matter how much glue I put on this H, it still wanted to just flip right up. Okay, now I can add in some more to this title. So it says Moonlit Nights, and then I added on Oahu using one of the alphabets from the collection, one of the smaller ones. Again, I meant these to print out as one piece, but they weren't close enough together, so the silhouette printed them out as a few different pieces. I just like printing things out as one piece so that it's easier to put down where you wanted it to go. I also printed my journaling on paper strips. I really love this style of scrapbooking, this sort of hybrid pre-planning the layout in Photoshop and then putting it back together and adding to it on paper. I think it's really the best of both worlds, both digital scrapbooking and paper scrapbooking, when you get to do it this way. Now these leaves were so pretty and so delicate. That was like the strongest one right there, because the stems are so thin. You have to be real careful about pulling them off the silhouette mat. So I did lose a couple of fronds here and there while I was pulling it off the silhouette mat. Not something that you can really tell, except for the tip of that blue one up there, which I will just glue down to the paper where it's supposed to go. But I didn't want a white outline. I didn't want anything to look like a sticker on this page. I wanted it to all kind of flow together and be one really beautiful white line free page. One composition that way. I decided to put these palm leaves in the wrong place. I guess they're palm. They're not really palm, but that's what they're going to serve as for me. They're ferns. But I think that they look tropical enough to frame my photos. Just putting down as much liquid glue as I can on these really skinny fronds to see if I can make it stick. I do want there to be a little bit of motion, a little bit of wiggliness on the page, just so that they look a little bit more natural. So I'm not completely gluing down every square inch. I like down there on the left-hand side one where you can see them kind of floating away from each other a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of these flowers from the kit and I'm going to add them to the palm fronds. Palm. I'm going to keep calling them palm even though they're fern. Or, I don't even know if they're ferns. They're just leaves, alright? Ombre leaves, and they're cute. I'm popping up each of these flowers on foam tape just for some height. Cast some shadows on the page, make it a little bit more interesting. Perfect. Okay, so we're getting close to done with all of the digital embellishments here. I do have this tag with the star on it. So I'm just going to tuck right under here. I cut off the top. Then I'm going to trim down this piece and make it stick out the top too. Easier than trying to pull up that foam tape. Nobody will ever know the difference. And I have a word bit as well. This collection's really pretty. She designed it for like the Northern Lights, so if you have photos of the Northern Lights, this is going to be a great collection for you. Now I'm putting all of my stars down with their little glitter embossing. Sorry, I'm a little off the page here. I'll move it up here in a second. And I decided that I wanted to add in some sequins too, because I have these beautiful purple sequins that I use on every single layout that has purple, I think. From Pretty Little Studio I got a million years ago, like seriously like 5 years ago, in I think a Wild Hair Kit collection. It might not have been that old, it might have been a Cocoa Daisy collection, but either way, you can see I'm almost out of them, but they are perfect for all of my purple layouts. So I'm adding them to each and every one of my clusters. Then I'm also going to add some enamel stars from Cocoa Daisy to the top half of the collection, these light blue ones, just to add them in for some depth on the top. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Tracy M. Reed. I'd love to see you over there as well. There's a link to this collection in the description box below, and I will see you next time. Thank you.